Welcome to another Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft Profile. We're doing over 70 of them. They're all available on YouTube. So if your team took a player, you want to learn more, go check them out on YouTube, Locked On Senators. Today's honorable mention is Andrew Strathmann. Obviously, as a Senators podcast, we know a lot about where he's going, but let's learn about where he's been. Youngstown Phantoms, Clark Cup champion.
Yep. He is a champ, a left shot defenseman listed at 5'10", 190 pounds. And he had a nice season with the Phantoms, 56 games, 3 goals, 35 assists, good for 38 points. But in the playoffs, he really stepped things up for a defenseman, 7 points in 9 playoff games, including 3 goals in 9 playoff games. So he matched his goal total in 9 playoff games versus 56. So he came up clutch for the Phantoms when they needed him.
And he'll be back with the Phantoms when they look to defend their Clark Cup because he's committed to North Dakota, but not until the 2024-25 season. So he'll have a chance to really establish him next season. And that brings me to the biggest point about Andrew Strathmann. Before I get to it, I do want to read off where our scouts have him ranked. Corey Pronman and Scott Wheeler agree for once on a player, 63rd on both of their lists. Chris Peters has him at 68, and Elite Prospects has him at 75, good for an average of 65.5. But for me, and this brings me back to what I said off the bat, it's not about where he's been, it's about where he's going. Andrew Strathmann had a fresh start this year. He was a Tri-City Storm member last year, played decent as a rookie in the USHL, 23 points, 61 games. Actually had 2 more goals, but not that matters. By the way, 100 PIMs in both seasons in the USHL, but he felt like he needed a fresh start, and Youngstown gave it to him. They think he's going to be the best defenseman in the USHL next year, and I don't see why not. Sure, he's still growing into his frame. He's a little undersized at 5'9", 5'11", 190 pounds. That's where the 9 got in there. But when you look at the Illinois native, you just see what could become if he's able to round out his game. And where have we seen defensemen round out their games? Under Brad Berry at North Dakota. So I have a ton of confidence in what this kid's going to become. I don't know if it's enough to be an everyday, 4-5 defenseman. He might be looking to be that 5-6 on a team, which is why he's not in the top 50 on our draft rankings on Locked On Sens. But there is some upside to be had with Andrew Strathmann.
Yeah, I think for sure. And when you're this age, especially as a defenseman, your development path will play a huge role in how you end up. And in my opinion, there's no better place you can go as a defenseman if you're going the college university route than North Dakota. I mean, it is a defenseman factory over there. Look at the Ottawa Senators. Jake Sanderson, Tyler Clevin, Jacob Bernard-Docker,
Christian
Wolanin. Yeah, so there's so much proof of that. And Brad Berry is a defense-first guy. And it's one of the most prestigious college hockey landing spots you can end up at. Like, Ross, you've been to their arena. It is impeccable, and they have state-of-the-art training facilities. So that is a great landing spot for Andrew Strathmann. Now, you mentioned he has 100 PIMs in both seasons. That's maybe a little too many, if you ask me. But, I mean, at least it shows he's not afraid to get in the mix, and that he's not someone that's going to get pushed around.
He's extremely raw, though. Like, every game you see a different skill pop out, but then you're like, wait, how can I bring that out of him all the time? And that's where I think years of coaching to come is going to decide what the future holds for Andrew Strathmann. I could look at those numbers and you see trends, whatever, but to me, it's the next coaches that get a hand on him. There, you're like, okay, here's how we need you to play to become an NHL style defenseman. So, like, Elite Prospects, Mitch Brown, their head of North American scouting, lots of good and lots of bad from Andrew Strathmann. And that's why I'm so happy he's deferred a year and will go to North Dakota in 2024. I feel like if it's next year, he'd be a guy that's in and out of the lineup, might hit the transfer portal. Who knows what the future would hold? But for him to be able to go back there, he already quarterbacked the power play. A lot of his points came on the power play, we should note as well. 19 of his 38 points came with the man advantage. He quarterbacked that top power play. And go check out Brad Schlossman, friend of the show, wrote this article all about him after they won the Clark Cup. So when you look at what's to come, to me, the biggest area of improvement is defensive positioning. I think he can get caught out of position at times, and with that comes kind of the wrong end of highlight reels. But if he can sort that out, and then be able to kind of show more consistency with his ability to break the puck out himself or find the best option to do so, I really do have confidence that this guy's going to be all right.
Yeah, I think so as well. And you mentioned Mitch Brown saying there's good and bad. So I'll give you a good and a bad for Strathmann here. The EP, we know if you've been following along with the Elite Prospects Draft Guide, and if you're not, highly recommend it. Ross, over 1,600 pages worth of information there.
Control F is your friend.
Big time. Big time, yes. But for Strathmann, EP likes his skating stride. And they are a scouting entity that
they may as well be a skating entity.
Yeah, they've got the protractor out and they're measuring the angles of strides and things like that. So they're very in tune with the skating stride. So if they like his stride, I will take that for what it's worth. It means he's probably a good skater and will continue to be a good skater. So that's good. But then Mitch Brown also says that for all the flashes of nice offense you see just as many bad giveaways and risky passes that turn into turnovers. And that's a good way to get on the bench more often than not under Coach Brad Berry. I'll tell you that much. So that's something that he's going to have to work out, simplifying his game and allowing his skating to make things easier on him rather than trying to force passes to make big plays. Just use your feet, especially when you're a defenseman. It can take you so far and make things so much easier on you.
Yeah, and you look at, the two prospects who he's kind of flashes of don't really play too big of a play in my mind, where an NHL scout said he's got a little bit of Ryan Merkley, Tony DeAngelo in him, where it's just like he's confident that he's going to take the puck up, but sometimes that can backfire. A little Johnny Tyconic, speaking of Nodak defenseman, that. If it doesn't work out, I think it could be in that sense.
Well, and Ross, it's interesting you mentioned Ryan Merkley. If you guys follow the show, you know I'm a Guelph Storm guy, so I had followed Ryan Merkley's junior career very closely, and he put up huge points in junior, and he was a guy that, teams' offense revolved around him. I'm talking about Merkley. But then as he got to the pros, he wasn't able to do what he was able to do in junior, and then he's kind of started fizzling out here. So with Andrew Strathmann, don't fall into that trap of being the guy that makes the big passes and starts the breakout with a two-line pass that goes over three defensemen's stick and lands. No, make your way with your skating.
Well, under Brad Berry, he won't play if that's the type of
that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Risk that he puts up. And if he doesn't play, then all of a sudden he'll be at Omaha and then in the East Coast League with St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's like the Johnny Tyconic path.
Yep.
And he'll get beat when he goes back to North Dakota because they had high hopes, because all their fans definitely watched the USHL and was like, I see him patrolling the blue line. He's not Jake Sanderson, but could he be a good left shot defenseman for us? I still think he can, but yeah, got to cool it on the turnovers, and Brad Berry will do wonders for that. So if your team took Andrew Strathmann, don't be penciling him in the lineup over the next couple of years. I think he's a good 5 years away before we start seeing him as an NHL player. I think it's going to be a long path, but one that if he sticks on it, the stock's already started rising. Mm-hmm. Next year, if he's the best defenseman in the USHL, then he's going to go into college with a little more confidence, even more than winning. And then you're starting to look at a guy where once it starts going downhill, you can start throwing obstacles out of your way.
Yep, exactly. I agree. I think he's going to be a bit of a project guy, but he's on the right path. Let's say that.
And for more Locked On Senators NHL draft profiles, head over to our YouTube page or wherever you download your podcasts. It's your team every day.